there was no separation between our conversation and starting the show. So it just shows you that it's a continuation of what we kind of start before we start. And chat's open. So happy to have anybody support and provide comments, questions. This is the live stream strategy event. We're getting far more action oriented, strategy oriented, collaborative oriented. We were just talking about the collaboration group we put together. It's only a couple months old, but it's amazing how tight it brings people when you have time to just share and discuss. And it's not what am I going to say today and how's the audience going to be. But, I think it's only verifying or justifying that one of the highest qualifying filters is, are you a really good person? Right? Because that puts the foundation for whatever one does, right? Are you fair? Are you thoughtful? Are you respectful? Are you open-minded? So, we start with the attributes you could already have, and then you build skill set and collaboration with others on top of it. So, it's really cool because it's a puzzle that just keeps getting more mysterious, but more rewarding as you start putting the pieces together. So I'm so honored again to have Kelle with us. Kelle is the proud founder and co-host, along with Christy Howard, of the Awesome Journey. And the show does align with the name. It is an awesome journey because even this week, the stories you hear and the lady who is sharing about her child and all the different things. And, you learn from others because you can relate to others. And that's the best learning you can have, is through someone else's challenge and victory. It's always the victory that makes the challenge so worthwhile. And sharing that makes it even more worthwhile because more people can learn from it. So, Kelle, why don't you bring everybody up to date? And what can we talk about today when it comes to LinkedIn live stream strategy?
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Uh, yeah, in the awesome journey, just to go a little bit off that, because it does tie into a collaboration and relationship with people. Because we do this week, it was Amber Shepherd, and it was about her journey and testimony with her son with cystic fibrosis. And y'all, anybody who knows me, I'm a crier to begin with. Um, I nearly like broke down and ugly cried multiple times. It was just such a touching and powerful episode of someone sharing, who they are, no mask, no boundary, pure vulnerability, and there's such beauty in that. And then next week we're taking a swing in a different direction. We have Peter Faselli, who is the whistleblower from the Fast and Furious, which involves Brian Terry, which happened here in Arizona. Um, he's a former ATF, so that's going to be incredible and great for me for so many reasons, because being in Arizona, that was an incident that was very much hush hush. But just the diversity of people that we talk to, but that's all come from live streaming. The different people that we connect with, that we have relationship with, and what we were talking about right into when we went live just a few moments ago. Was collaboration. And when you connect with people and have true conversation, not email strings back and forth, because they're just not the same. Get on a call with people and talk to them and start the relationship. Is people who maybe I can't do business with because we just don't align in that way. They don't need my service or I don't need theirs, however you want to say that. I still think about people when I'm meeting other people, and then immediately will be like, oh my God, I need to connect you with such and such. And one of the things we were talking about, Con is in our collaboration group, and we had a talk earlier this week. And I immediately, because he's got a book launch coming up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know somebody that you need to be connected with, who has a podcast that talks about what you have. did an introduction. Again, he and I may not be able to share services, but may. But you don't know until you start having conversation. And I think there's something so wonderful about, and I'm seeing this with so many people that I have met over the last year. Um, I can maybe not hear from them in a couple of months, and then all of a sudden we'll do an introduction email. Hey, I just had this conversation with this person. Knew you guys needed to meet. Um, it makes it for a much more, I will say, fun experience on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn can feel pretty dry to some people if you're really not interacting with it, or you don't even know what to do with it, because that can be a lot of times. But creating connection through live stream, through calls, will speed up the relationship or create relationships that you will never have via your email automation string. I'm a marketer, and I can say that just from my experience. A lot of your email automation campaigns that you're using through LinkedIn are not effective. You are actually probably turning off more people than you are turning on. You may grab a few people by casting out that broad net, but the people that you are turning off permanently, that's where your problem lies. Because you never know where someone later might be like, I don't need your services now, but when it comes time, I remember you because you were memorable. And you weren't trying to sell me right out of the gate. Like, that is one of my biggest things, is dreaded pitch slap. People, stop it. So, yeah, so that was a lot, but I think those are my thoughts, because I believe, just with live stream and collaboration, and truly the live stream community is quite small, because we all kind of get to know each other because we watch each other's shows, either to see ideas, or to meet other people. I mean, I love seeing other people. I'm like, oh, I don't know this person, and this story sounds interesting. And again, it's just a way to speed up knowing someone. Yeah, it's so much more fun than just reading an inbox email that's so blasé or like everyone else. It has much more personality.
Oh, I mean, I agree with you 1,000,000%, because you don't know what you don't know. How you come in is how you stay until you figure something out or somebody shows up and can redirect you. And why are you here is to get some benefit. And
Right.
right. And how are you benefiting from doing these obscure posts? Some are cryptic, some are really non-interesting because it's about your puppy and everything's cute, but you don't want to go for cute here, right?
No,
You want to go for serious initiatives, gaining things, acquiring things, mostly knowledge, mostly networking. I mean, you got to start, you have a startup business when you're doing what you're doing.
mhm.
And you got to build a team, and you've got to build a product or a service, and you've got to build value, and you got to do all these things. You can't be able to do those at the beginning. Now, you can market what you always have done and who you always have been, but you're dragging legacy into the future. And what you find is you're visualizing it in real time. How hard is it to close your eyes and say, I could be in Kelle or Don's seat tomorrow, right? All I got to do is raise my hand. I don't think anybody who's been in an audience hasn't had an opportunity to be on a show and be on multiple shows. And, if you're good for us, you're good for all of us. So, Kelly's right. If I come across somebody, and we have like Carl, like Beverly, like Con, like Dave, that's so easy because all they had to do is know what they had wasn't going to work. And to Kelly's point, it wasn't a lot of fun. When you jump on LinkedIn, if it's a chore, if it's a responsibility, if it's an obligation, it wears you down. And then when you get worn down by unrespectful people and posts that don't really align with you, that's where the change is. And what we decided, and it was just by observing what was happening. Not, it's funny how if you let nature take its course and you let things happen organically and you don't force or push or pull, they have a way of coming together the right way. And 20 people plus, I stopped counting, who never even appeared on a show now have their show.
Yeah.
And that's why me and Kelle and Harvey came together. And that's why we have these plans. And we have really what we're working on is more personalized attention to, like Khan's doing with his book, like Carl's doing with his ventures. Because why not do more with the people you know, like, and trust already? And the more you learn, it's kind of like I visualize in so many different ways to give me different context and perspective. Is, let's say me and Kelle and the group, which is about 7, are walking into a gold mine every day, but we're going into a different tunnel. But we all come back with what we found in that gold mine, right? And we share it, where one of us would have had to go in there 7 different times, versus come together one time for 7 of us to say, hey, here's what I prospected, here's what I learned, here's who I met, and come back to the center and then build a bigger hub, right? If you let numbers take care of themselves, they will. And when you're leveraged against bigger numbers, and really the only question, if you get right down to it, is what are you waiting for?
And what are you afraid of? Because I think as you were saying that, it reminds me of being in the business environment. If you're in an office, and I think we've all experienced this person sometime in our career, the manager or the upper level manager, whomever, who is so like secretive, like I'm not sharing what I know. And that's all about insecurity, because the organization doesn't care. You are replaceable. They don't care if nobody else knows your task. They will figure it out, I promise you. And that's the same thing in collaboration. There's sometimes people they're insecure and afraid, like someone's going to steal my idea. Nobody is telling you to go to a collaboration group and share something that you're considering patenting or something. But when you're talking about process or how to accomplish something, man, it does speed it up in such a way. And just a friendly reminder, there's 1 billion people on LinkedIn. You're not in competition with each other. I promise you. Even if you have the same widget that you're selling, pushing, however you want to say it, you're not in competition with each other. There's plenty of people. And because each person is another audience's flavor, if you will. I'm not for everybody, and everybody's not for me. And same with Dawn. We'll have different. There may be some overlap, but I think that's a big part with some people, is that they're fearful and insecure of, ooh, I don't think I want to share because I don't want someone to take it or do it faster. But you've got to have some vulnerability to come to the table, if you truly want that. And I think a lot of people now, with the job market being, more people are laid off, more people are out of work longer, excuse me, and having to figure out during the time that they're out of work, how can I build a business? Y'all, that is a huge, huge boat of folks that are in that position. Um, and so to share with all of them, because, and I can speak for myself, I'm very successful in corporate America. But when it came to an accidental consultant situation for being laid off in 2020, much like so many others, and trying to figure things out, I didn't go at it as most people do. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have any of those things. It was just, I was taking small contract work to survive until I could land a corporate job. Um, and so a lot of people are building businesses backwards, if you will, and deciding I've got to take it in my own hands and do something, um, in order to survive, because I can't count on the job market. So getting in collaboration groups, doing something unique and different. I mean, there is nothing better. And I think people are more willing to share. And I think you'd be surprised, because I still get surprised. I had a call earlier this week that I was expecting to talk more about this person's strategy. And they kind of flipped the script on me and were like, what can I do for you? You're always doing for everybody else. What can I do to help you? And I was just sort of like, huh, how lovely. And of course, embrace that completely. But I think you'd be surprised at how many people really are out there to help you, um, just by you showing up and being there. I think that's the whole vulnerability part is, don't have an agenda with people. Because I do think there's more good people out there that want to see you succeed and want to help you get to a goal that you're trying to achieve, um, probably than you think. Those are my thoughts. What do you think, Tom?
I mean, you got great thoughts, and what I thought is a lot of thoughts, and primarily how much better we are at qualifying people, at relating to people now, so that our success rate when we bring a guest on, is an invitation to join with us for a short period of time, no cost except for the time and the trust. Right?
Mhm.
Do you trust me to take you on a journey you've never been and feel safe along the way, is what we're saying. Because a lot of people reject video because they have a self-consciousness about how they look on video, how many people are thinking about what they are or what they're not. And that's natural,
Mhm.
but that doesn't have to be permanent. So once you have somebody that's doing it and somebody that you could exchange places with and feel like they're nothing totally special, right?
Uh,
They're just normal every day who are really focusing on being very proficient at a beautiful platform that creates huge opportunity. And Kelly's so right, there's so much opportunity. The
mhm.
last thing you want to do is grab space and hold on to it because you'll never be able to embrace anything more. And I'll tell you another thing about collaboration groups. They're hard to find, they're hard to qualify to if they're quality, but they're easy to lose
Mm.
because it keeps everybody on their best behavior. Because if someone does something, and it happened over the year, a couple of people got a little outrageous or, tipped the scales, and that separates people. So it means everybody's responsible and accountable for every interaction. And why not be more generous? Why not overserve? Why not be more polite? It's everybody's opportunity that doesn't have it, because most people are responding to the opposite approaches, which is defend, guard, don't get that person. I mean, all this negative stuff that you could be focused on. How do we build?
Yeah.
We are such a drop in the ocean relative to the ocean as far
Mhm.
as size. But I'll say one thing, and I don't like to just pat ourselves on the back. We are probably the highest quality, value oriented collaboration group on live streaming. Now, that takes it down about 7 levels, and there's not that many live streamers to begin with. Um, but what it's cool is now being able to say, this is way too big for us. Why
Mm.
not bring more people in as they can qualify as that good person, as that person who's already sharing, giving, and enjoying giving, but feels like I'm never going to get a return. It's one thing to give and one day get, but it's one thing to give and no one cares, no one's going to return it. And you ask yourself, couldn't I find somebody who could better benefit from my time, and who do I need? And in a lot of ways, it's coming down to friendship.
Mhm.
Kelly was lucky with Christy because they started as friends and formed a show. Some people can form a show and make a friend. I know, like Jason and Dave are just a great pairing. I know yesterday, Jason with Carl were a great pairing.
They
And
were. I love that.
yeah, and the beauty of it is it's not hard for them to be nice. It's actually what they want to do,
Well, I
right?
think because, the beauty and doing this for, and I say as long as I have, but as many as I have, I guess I should say, is the beauty of it is, and I just started doing a live event series also with Jason Wilson, but it's how people show up. And I think when you have people who, because a Jason Gerardo and Carl Dakin, they show up as themselves. You don't have to worry about anything else. There's no agenda. There's no trying to be something that they're not. And when you combine people who are showing up authentically as themselves, and I know a lot of people say the word authentic is overused, but authentic when you see it. And when you combine authentic people together, you're bound to have something that's magical that you could never script. And we say that so many times because there's, we go live and we talk about something. We're focusing on a topic, but so many in the past, we didn't even have a word sometimes when we first started. It was still the people that came on, there was still this honest conversation that went to levels that we could never have scripted in advance. Because when you're scripting, it does tend to keep people more surface level because I'm more worried about saying the thing that I want to make sure to say about this bullet point. And so I'm thinking about it and not really being present. So I think there's just a beauty of knowing that people are showing up as themselves and they'll roll with whatever comes, especially when you have a live audience coming at you and asking questions or making comments and knowing how to shift into that and not being rattled. But again, I think it's just to the core of when you have authentic people showing up and being present, you have something that's magic that comes out of it.
Yeah, so true. And it's something you can feel. It's
Yeah.
not a balance sheet, it's a reality. Even Beverly says, I'll second that, Don. Shameless self-promotion, LOL. This team is the best. Every day there's something here. And together, knowing that reconfirms it, but also motivates each other because you get excited when other people around you are excited. You work harder when everybody enjoys working harder because it's working towards something. It's transformational. It's finally having dreams that you can have but make come true with the help of others. Because in most cases, it's not capability, it's fortitude, it's perseverance. It's the ability to play through, knowing what's on the other side. And as you smell the finish line, most people who are, let's say, competitive rise to the occasion. The faster they get, the closer they get to where they want to be. And I think that's so inspiring. And we talk about it in our group all the time is we can become training wheels for people. We said that from the beginning. If you can't do it, could we do it?
Yeah.
Could we help you do it? And you know what? We're only looking for success stories. So we will definitely tell someone, hey, I think you need more time or you need to work on this before something like that will happen. And, I remember, and it was funny that just happened this week, two different individuals from my past when I was running my own companies reached out to me. And why? Because Beverly says it all the time, and everybody else is visibility.
Oh, yeah.
Carl is a prime example. He's got two clients, I believe, just because someone says, because Carl's been in the business over 40 years. Hey, I didn't know what happened to you. He might not have seen him for 15 years, and now you're doing a live stream. Now you're doing a newsletter, right? So out of 1 billion people, you start popping up. Because I know, and it's hard to believe, that we don't understand what a presence we have in people's LinkedIn mindset. To most people, they're seeing me more and Kelle more and Harvey more than they are Gary Vee, because Gary Vee isn't doing a 7-person show with 22 people, but he gives us room to take over where maybe he started 30 years ago or whatever. But before we get too far, can't go beyond talking about our wonderful guest here. We talked about Carrie being here. So great to have you, Carrie. You're always bringing a sense of humor. Beverly, which is the hour of, not the hour of empower, but the women's empowerment event today. She had a great show this week with Dr. Deborah. So happy to have you, Beverly. Beverly comes back with, so true, Kelle, you are unique in what you say, what you do, how you do it. We all have our own niche. And you can't help but take some of Kelle with you, or Beverly, or Harvey every time you do a show, because it's like, hey, that's a better idea than I thought. I'll take it. Harvey's always, scribbling down notes.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool because he's going to use them. It's almost like a comic goes to another comic's performance and writes down a few jokes that went well. and everybody kind of takes from each other and gives to each other. But you know what the difference is? Style, personality, presentation. That's what separates people. You can go anywhere and eat food, right? But certain restaurants really put it to a higher level. And the other thing, you compare against other successful concepts and vehicles. Sometimes I look at this as a bed and breakfast, right? I'm going to invite somebody into a show like this who's never been here and try to make every bit about them, how I can help them, promote them, make it the best experience, and transfer that to the audience. And then we've done our job, right? If I'm here every day, the last thing I got to do is tell you something I probably haven't told you already or couldn't tell you tomorrow. So, it's only the excitement that really parses up the hour. So if someone gets on a roll and they're just passionate, and that's what you want an energy projection from the show. You don't want a lot of people just dozing off, and really I saw some tip YouTube video and it says how you start a show, if you're enthusiastic, if you're exciting, makes people want to be there because it looks like you want to be there. And if you come across as like, oh, hi, everyone, I'm here again. What do I want to talk about? It's like, forget that. How would you, if you go into a really high quality department store or dealership, I mean, they put the red carpet out, and they give you better snacks. So, let's keep going. Beverly comes back. I think we covered this. Oh, today we can't count on job security. This is a whole new world, and we can all help each other and lift each other higher. Doesn't matter who's writing your check, you're working for yourself. And you're going to continue to work for yourself. And you should always be building bridges while you have a safe spot. And that's the benefit of having a show like this. You can invest a few hours directly and allow yourself to draft off of, the cars that are already running fast on the track. Jeff Witherspoon is here. Haven't seen you in a while, but great to see you. I know you support Kelly and Christie's show. Beverly says, yeah, okay, shameless self-promotion. Here's Harvey. Wouldn't be the same without Harvey. Hello, Donald, Cohen, and Kelly's. Nick, I wanted to join between meetings. Always good to be here, my favorite friends. Well, it's nice to have support, and I always try to make everybody's show, if nothing else, to add a comment, spend a few minutes understanding the guest and supporting their guest. And, if you got 7 people coming to each other's shows, you got a show just there.
Right. And that's the whole part of community, right? That's what makes us feel good. And we all remember what it was like to do our first show and then to be like, oh gosh, live sounds so terrifying. And what if nobody shows up? Like all the things that all of us think. And we know how good it felt to see that first comment and be like, oh, thank God, at least one person's watching. Or it kind of eases you. But knowing that you have support around you in anything makes you feel, because you could start off being a little bit nervous, but as soon as you see those couple comments come in or the few people and you're like, oh God, that feels so great. And it does make you sit up taller and feel more confident. And that's the beauty of community is, and I say this, I know a lot, but it's just a fact. When we're part of a community, the reason we love that is, one, we're human beings, and that is just what we're built for. But we feel safe and supported. And when we feel safe and supported, we're more apt to do things that we wouldn't do by ourselves. Because we feel a little, superhuman. Well, how can I fail with all these people around me who, if I stumble, they're going to be the first ones there to help me get back up or to encourage me to get back up. Because guess what? We didn't get to where we are doing our own shows or going into other areas now because we started off great. I mean, we've made mistakes. Like we've fallen on our face a few times, but it's part of the process. And I think when you're able to embrace it that way, and Beverly is one that says this a lot about failure is such a negative word, which is such a shame. Because failure is not the opposite of success; it's part of success. If you're not failing at some point in your life, you're not pushing the envelope far enough. You're failing by not trying anything. But it is part of knowing that I'm going to get there but man, this was a hiccup, and now I've got to pivot and adjust. Because anyone, and then social media, unfortunately, puts us all in a place of self comparison on the regular. Um, you don't know how many failures a Gary V, a Tony Robbins, whoever, they have failed miserably along the way to their success. And I don't mean that as a Debbie Downer by any means. It's just a fact because they've tried. When you're blazing out a new path that hasn't existed before for yourself, you're bound to make a mistake, and embrace it and just be like, well, now I can pivot and make it better. And part of Scrum, which I know a lot of people hear people talk about agile and Scrum. Scrum just simply, it comes from rugby, and it's you continually moving the ball down the field. And that's part of it, but it's their approach is fail fast. Like they try to make things fail so
Mhm.
that they can adjust and make it better. And when you have that philosophy about doing something, I don't, it feels different because I'm able to, when I mess up at something or I do or fail, I mean, however you want to put it, I am able a lot of times to sit back and chuckle at it. There are other times where I'm like, ooh, I should have listened to my gut instinct. But
Mhm.
you nonetheless learn from it. And I think, to go back to a collaboration group, those are the times to go back and be like, y'all, I tried this and this is what happened. One, you're sharing your knowledge with everybody else. And two, I guarantee you that collaboration group or the people that you have in your, your knit of folks in business that you talk to will be like, oh, thanks for sharing. And, don't worry, you can pivot. Here's some ideas. I mean, everybody's there to help you and push you in a right direction and continue to encourage you to move down the path, which is another beauty of the whole aspect of it is we all need other people to make it to wherever it is that we're trying to go. And I can't think of who said this. This is terrible. I'll look it up and I'll share it maybe another time that I'm on. Um, but something to the effect of all we all are doing here is guiding each other home. And and the reason that touched me in such a way, because it's like every person that comes into our life, and we all hear this, comes in for a reason, season, or lesson. And but when you're present and embrace that is part of it, instead of making it, ooh, what does this person really want from me? And what are they trying to take from me? And that whole defensive thing. Um, you can make it more enjoyable for yourself. Be present, and I think that's what live streaming has truly helped redefine for me is about being present and not making it about presentation or a transaction. Not that I was ever a salesperson that pushed sales transactions per se, because I don't believe people buy your widget or your service; they buy you. Um, but it's allowed me to honestly like myself better and more, I guess I should say, because I trust myself to be present and not worry about being perfect because nobody's perfect. And when I lose my train of thought halfway through a sentence, which has happened many a time, it just makes me human, but it allows me to accept myself. So I think there's a beauty of self growth through live streaming as well. So I think I'll leave it there because I think I did a lot in that little.
You've got so many great points there. One I'll say is after doing so many of these, if you look at hit shows or movies, they always have a list of bloopers, right? Or outtakes because someone flubbed their line, somebody fell or something. I mean, and they all laugh. It's a serious scene, and then everybody laughs, and pretty soon they put they compile, a YouTube full of them or whatever, just like Candid Camera going way back used to be. So I look at every not as a mistake. I believe we're still learning how to play in the big game. We're not in the big game yet. And this is a time where you practice things, you train things, you experiment with things. And if you learn something, it was worth maybe a flub. But then you got to be comparative to who else is out there. And I'm not saying anything except what I'm saying is we've been around, especially in early days, to be curious. What is this show like? Who are those people? What are they doing? How are they doing it? And I think we learned as much on how not to do a show by doing that,
Oh yeah.
and to build on how we felt a show should do. Because when you get away from catering to what do people think and want, to what do you have that's important to share,
Mhm.
because it's not about numbers, not the kind of shows we're having. If you're going to put a rally on and have a whole to do, yeah, you need a lot of people. But if you want to have a quality conversation among a tight group of people, and one other point I wanted to share is people coming for each other's show demonstrates the association you have,
Mhm.
right? So if Leslie shows up and Beverly and Harvey and everybody else, well, somebody says, "Wow, they're supporting this show. I think it's something must be there." I mean, if Dolly Parton showed up tomorrow and
Wow, random.
saying, "Hi, Kelly and Don, I just love your show," she wouldn't have to stay more than a second for that to be huge for anybody else, because hey, Dolly likes it. Where does Dolly or Oprah or whoever it is that you put up there and say, "Wow, I didn't know a show like this exists." And you know what? That's the tripwire between what we're doing and going big. Is someone who's gets up in the morning, puts their pants on the same way everybody else does,
Oh yeah.
right? And then says, "Hey, I saw a Kelly show at Christie or Don show at Harvey or whatever show, and I recommend it because I want to help people."
Yeah, and
I'm at a
even
point. Go ahead.
and it comes down to even guests because, like Harvey, he's booked out for months, and we're the same. But now guests that we've had on, they're doing that. They're saying, "Hey, whomever, you need to check out Kelly and Christie's show and set up a call with them." And the pre-qualification is there because once you're pulled over, because likely it would have taken us longer to individually go after certain people, but it does. You get a layer of pre-qualification because you get to know people by doing this. And I don't know why, but now I'm gonna be singing freaking 9 to 5 all day long. Um, Dolly Parton came out of left field. And for, I think probably most of you, at least that are in the audience, know the song 9 to 5 and the cute movie with her. I don't know, it was 100 years ago. But it's cute. But yeah, the pre-qualification with one another is super fantastic. And you can't do that in just reading people's posts. Like it's just impossible. Um, I don't know. I'll toss back over because that was my interruption, and we
Well,
probably
I think that's the foundation for us now narrowing our focus to live stream strategy, to LinkedIn strategy. Is we're at a point where we tested it. We've done enough of it to know it works. We've done enough of it to know the value and values we receive, not only from ourselves, because I think to Kelly's point, when you start feeling better about yourself is when people value you more, right? When you get up and you say, "I just helped who knows how many people now, but how many people in the future." And when I'm learning about live streaming, it's not the stream and what happens after. We're creating content right now. Everybody's a co-producer, co-director. A comment now moves the conversation. A name like Dolly Parton starts shifting focus. But everybody can agree that if somebody like Dolly came on, or somebody huge, and put their stamp of approval on it, or put you in a instead of a book club, the book of the month, the live stream of the month. I mean, 1 million people could be here tomorrow, and we would be on the right side of the track helping them on,
Mhm.
because I see us now more as concierges, right? To take you from maybe a scary place to a happy place and take you there with us. You know what I mean? So if you really like Kelly, if you really like Harvey, you get us all in the same boat, right? I mean, so if you were to join our collaboration group, you'd see Con, you'd see Harvey, you'd see Dave working together, not just talking together, not just entertaining together, but getting down to brass tacks and saying, you know, Carl is so into newsletters that he's going to make us all better for the knowledge he has. You
Oh,
know, I'm into, Harvey is into promoting events and doing a fabulous job. Well, I'm learning what Harvey's learning. And I'm now focused on, let's say the next step is repurposing video through automation.
mhm.
And if we can do that, if you start using AI, which is just a huge opportunity going forward, if you start using live streaming, if you start using automated editing tools and repurposing tools, well, you've got four legs to your stool already. And now you've got the benefit of people, and the people really raise everything. I mean, I know Kelly and Harvey will agree. I've had unforgettable experiences with people. I mean, people where if you never saw them again, heard from them, did anything, they did more than enough to help you, right? I mean, it's like a pit stop, where you got a whole crew that jumps on that car and gets you back on the track. And I think we just have a passion for helping people, and not only helping people, but seeing how they feel when they get security, when they get some success, when they're optimistic. Because, if anybody comes home and says, I think I might have the answer to what our challenge is, whether it's a partner or a family member or a friend, they have hope again, right? And that gives them some reason to make that change. And I think that's what we want to instill, is be hopeful. But let's get back to, here's a great comment from Harvey. Kelle, you're right about achieving more together and feeling more confident with the backing of your community, your friends, and oh yes, embrace failure. And we are the tools that can collectively open this up, right? To expand our gold mining and bring more in. Here's the other thing I thought of, and it's great when things build on themselves. We started this group basically with me, Kelle, and Harvey being in a mentorship or training or whatever you want to call it. But since, Beverly, Carl, Dave, and Con have come in, they're only a few steps away from being where we were as far as being able to mentor. So now you have 7 people who are accomplished, 7 people that are doing it, not just teaching it or sharing their thoughts about it, but actually mining it and getting excited. And a lot of people have been very successful. So it's not like, somebody who wants their first opportunity. It's people that could do so many other things if they chose to, or not at all, but choose to say, hey, this is something that personally and professionally helped me develop better. And that's because when you're happy, the people around you get happy. When you're successful, now you can help more people, right? And just continue to build on that. So Jeff says, I fail all the time, Kelle, but I still get back up. Well, then you haven't failed. You just gave yourself a break from standing for a while. And I think humor goes a long way.
Oh, yeah.
Laughing at your mistakes, admitting your mistakes. If you're good with your mistakes, everybody else is good with your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
If you get really, defensive and deny it or justify it, it wastes so much time. And no matter what you say, everybody knows better anyways. So why not come clean, and get it over with and find out it was never that big of a deal to begin with, because embarrassing things are always going to happen, right?
Oh,
and you have to almost expect them. And when they happen as well, I kind of figured. But, with this great audience, I don't see too many other comments with that. But I do want to mention Harvey's show is the franchise show. It follows the show every Tuesday. Carl's show is Successful Funding, I believe it is. And that's at an hour before the show on Tuesdays. And then at following Harvey's show is Kelle's show. And, we were always talking, and we still do, about sponsorships. In a sense, that's who's supporting this show.
Mm-hmm.
Those are our sponsors here, but we're also sponsoring and promoting everybody else's show. So, the thing you can do is share, is to
Mhm.
promote, because together we're so much better, so much fun, and it doesn't matter who gets on the track first, who's running fast now, because the game and the race will never end as long as you keep finding more and better ways of doing things and more and better people to do them with. Eventually, it gets to be a formative collective. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden, it just has a life of its own, but it can't be replicated unless it was built the same way as something that's built organically. So, Kelly, a lot of stuff going on, man.
Yeah, so many things. And I want to go back to, because I know I made a face when you said AI. Because and I have this conversation a lot with people. AI, I love AI. It is a great tool, and I emphasize, excuse me, tool. Hold on one second. I need to clear my throat here.
Well, I'll just share while you're clearing. From an AI standpoint, I agree with this so much. It's just like Google, right? You use it when you need it. And the same thing with AI is I run it by it, I get some ideas, but then I know what I need to do to make
Yeah,
it me, and to not make it like so flowery and extravagant. Go ahead, Kelly.
we can tell when you've gone to an AI tool and generated content. Like there's certain words and a certain cadence that it uses that it's obvious. Like we know. and and I recommend to people, because I do some work in the technical space for institutional investors. So that type of writing is way different. And then just for grins, I put some things into an AI tool and it interpreted totally wrong. Like it was not correct. So it's not like somebody who wants to go into copywriting or think that they can use an AI tool completely for all sorts of clients. You can't. Uh, and it will always need to be edited to some degree, um, because it doesn't have the tone and or the personality of your brand. um, it is a great way to get ideas. I use it a lot of times if I'm stuck, I want to write something like this, or if I have, um, as an example, and I recently did this. I have a long bio, and I was like, oh, I need to reduce this down into, like 6, 8 sentences. And I put it in and said, please shorten this to 6 or 8 sentences. And it did, but I still had to go back and edit because it didn't pull out the things that I really wanted to highlight, but it gave me a starting point, and it saved me time. And I'm one of those, and this has been probably a majority of my career, having a team and having a copywriter on staff. I used to always say, just throw something together that I can start to edit. Don't worry about it being perfect, because if I had something to start with, it was always easy to just it's just like the whole Scrum thing. Let's just keep the ball moving down the line. Um, but it's remembering, your LinkedIn profiles, and to kind of circle back to LinkedIn and the whole approach of yourself is you have your own personal brand. You are your brand. Who are you? You are not what AI tells you you are. Promise you that. Um, and that's why doing live streaming is such an important tool to also have, I think, in your toolbox, because when people can see, hear the tone, your personality, all of those things, they read your content differently because they know who you are. Whereas when you go to someone's profile and you read their content or you see a post, you're perceiving it based on your own perception, because you don't know who this person is at all. You don't know what their intent was. But generally, if you've seen them on screen doing live streaming, you can almost hear them saying the words if it matches their brand. Or if you, on the other side of that, if you read it and you're like, huh, I'm confused. And you may not even know that you're confused. But when there is a confused message about branding, that it's not consistent, it does confuse people and it does make them repel. We don't like that. We like to have things be consistent. Um, so I think those are just some big important things. Speaking AI, because AI in and of itself could be, a series of live streams, because it's very complex. But I think people count on it too much to do too much work for them, and forget the fact of, it's not the answer to everything. Um, and figure out how to best use it, because you've got to have the tone and the personality of your brand, within all your content. And then AI doesn't do that naturally. You still need to go back and edit, which is, to circle back to my biggest pet peeve on LinkedIn, which is the pitch slap in my inbox. Y'all are using the same AI generated email strings in your automation, and we all know it. And it's so ineffective. And I'll leave it there because I could go on about that forever.
That's what makes it so refreshing when you're more authentic and original and you're particular, where you only send out 10 or 15 invites, not 200.
Yeah.
The other element is you start, nothing you do the first time is ever going to be as bad as that. So the first time you do anything, is going to be the most challenging. And when you're gifted with an AI tool like ChatGPT, and you can just put something in it and give you a book if you allow it to, you get caught up in, wow, I can get more, and it doesn't take any of my time or thought. But it's almost equating it to if you went to an ice cream parlor, how many scoops would you stop getting even if they were free, right? Because you just want to fill your appetite and enjoy it. But if they said, hey, for
Always have a food analogy.
another burger patty or another ice cream. And so what I found is, what does it do really well that I don't, like it does emojis really well, right? So I could just give it what I have and say, fill in with emojis. And I know it'll do that. Again, you can pick and choose what you like and what you don't. But it is staying authentic to how people have gotten to know you, right? So you feel comfortable and casual, but then when you start writing with AI, it gets formalized, starts to sound more corporate or more, too many flowery statements that really don't apply. But you learn that over time, and you say, now how do I become efficient with an efficiency tool? How do I use YouTube to my benefit? So you should always have, just like if you have a spice cabinet, you pull out cinnamon sometimes you pull out thyme. It's what do you need it for? And I think the more you can say, well, here's what I use YouTube for, or Google, or here's how I'm seeing live streaming. But what I believe we now have is a richer, deeper understanding of live streaming, because the typical thought is, well, how much can I sell here, right? How many clients can I get, versus, who can I meet? What can I learn? How can I become part of a community? But most people, if they had the framework, they would already be there. So that's where that onboarding, that orientation, that acclimation comes in. And, me and Kelle and Harvey have talked about personalizing things to match people's time frame and sense of urgency.
Yeah,
right?
because when people hear, and this is part of, I believe, the issue of end user, and even myself, because I definitely, I started somewhere, because it can sound overwhelming when we say something like AI to help with your content. We say YouTube and all of these things. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so massive and it's overwhelming. So people repel from it. But that's the beauty of working with a collaboration group or someone that's done it, to be like, okay, let's take a look at your resources. What are your goals? Here's the path of what we would recommend that you do short term. Because it's that, old saying, when we look at it holistically, it can feel overwhelming. And it's that, dreaded elephant that we can't, you can't eat an elephant all at once. I don't know where the origin of that is. But you can only do it by taking one bite at a time. And that's what a collaboration group, or working with someone who's done it, whomever it is, that can help you make it work for your situation, because each individual situation is going to be different. It's not the same. It's not like, here's an out of the box strategy that will work for everyone, because that's untrue. So if anyone's trying to sell you something that works for everyone, say in the coaching space, it likely has some generic things that will work for you, but it's not going to work for you ultimately of where you're trying to go. But again, I just think maybe a good example too is to go back, like you said, the training wheels. You're trying to learn to ride this bike for the first time, but I don't know how to do it. And it seems so scary. you need training wheels for someone to be like, hey, we know how it feels. We know the path that you need to take to make this be a smoother ride until we can take those training wheels off. Because it really is not as scary as it sounds. But I know when people start saying all of these other tools and throwing in YouTube and third party tools that you need to have, and that it can feel like I don't have time for that. Like that just seems so much. Um, but when you talk about your own situation, there is a way to make it happen. It just it's not as overwhelming as it can sound. And I do just like to point that out because I know when we start saying things like YouTube and such that people are like, oh, no, now I'm out because that just sounds like too much.
Yeah, you make wonderful points because I kind of again equated if you went for personal training in a gym, initially you'd have some sort of review, right, with some trainer or
Yep.
somebody there, and they would say, okay, where do you want to go? Do you
Where are
want
you
to
at?
do you want to build muscle? Do you want to just socialize here? And what can we do together to put a plan together? And Kelle, you're so right, because people who are fighting against the wind and having so much resistance and less acceptance are getting challenged just from that, and then coming up with things. And at the same time, they're, I would say, spending, but mostly wasting time, energy. And what we talk about is having like an audit and review. So let's sit down and see, what are you doing now? How are you doing it? How much time and money are you investing in it? And
Mhm.
could we redirect that for better purpose? So in other words, not do any more, but do a lot better together on a monthly basis even. So, there's really no financial risk. What it is the ability to jump out of a burning building into a safety net, and how much pain and how much hesitancy do you want? And, what do you have to lose? And I think most people, when they deal with worry, if they figured worst case, they could probably survive even that. If the worst situation happened, which will probably never happen, right? What do you have to lose? And what is going to change if you don't change? How are you ever going to get where you want? And it's you who decides if you're disappointed. If you
Mhm.
find happiness and success in wherever you are, don't move. Enjoy every bit of it for as long as you can. But if you're not where you think you should be, not happy where you should be, doesn't mean you jump out of the building, but at least you can look for the net and look for the people who are holding that net for you. And, trust yourself to trust yourself, because it really comes down to you and you. And when you wake up every morning, you're so proud and excited that what's in front of you. And when you go to sleep at night, where you're just tickled for another day of adventure and fun and love. And I think if, it's there, we're seeing it, and you're spending time watching this and the people after this. And we're all open for calls to talk to you. And, there's enough to do. We don't have to do more with more people. Just the seven of us will have more ideas, more plans, and more everything else. But we also know that the more different individuals come with different perspectives, different talents, it's like almost being part of a collective of same-minded people. And I love seeing people have success and see what it does for them. So anyways, we're top of the hour. I can't thank everybody enough. Tomorrow is a big show. We've got Con with Todd DeWitt. So, Con's going to be on his first show here. I know Con's had experience on other live streams. So if
He's
we
great.
let's get the word out. It's going to be a terrific show. And if you haven't had the chance to meet Todd, he's been on this show. He's been on Harvey's show. He retired at 42 as a dean of a university and got brought back in with LinkedIn Learning and has 44 courses. So if you're thinking of coursework or how do you get started, it might be a great thing. And then Con has a great book to introduce to everybody. We'll probably be one of the first to share it to the public, so we're honored for that. So thank you again. Can never thank you again as much. So we'll thank you tomorrow some more. So with
Yeah.
that said, have a beautiful day.